day 60 is next Friday, a week from today. So we are definitely in the home stretch. Today, the House has one more committee meeting of the Rules Committee and is on the floor, has floor action scheduled for most of the day. Senate does as well. Next week, it looks like floor activity only all week, plus budget conferencing. So let me go ahead and start sharing the bill reports. Everybody should have received the bill report yesterday evening. Thank you, Laura, for getting that out. Let me go ahead and run through this top to bottom like we have the last several weeks, ordered by bill action. And we're only going to get about a third of the way through this report before I think everything else is almost certainly dead at this point. So let me talk about the ones that are looking good for passing. Environmental management is through the Senate and is on the House floor in the House. This is the bill that has the side slopes. It has a few other things in there, but it also has a limitation on cause of action and limitation of liability. And this is the one that has been a little bit controversial, has been getting a bunch of no votes on the for the trial lawyer influenced folks. But it does look like it's going to pass along party lines. And it's on the House floor in the House. The mangrove replanting bill that would authorize rules did pass through the House, but there is it's stuck in rules on the Senate, and there's no committee meeting scheduled in the Senate at all this week, today or next week. So I think it's possibly, maybe even likely dead. It could be traded in conferencing. They can the House can take up the Senate bill on the House floor. There's a rule for that, but right now I would give this a coin toss whether it works and passes this year. Mitigation by Broder and the companion by Trunow. It's passed the Senate and is on the House floor, so it looks teed up for approval. There's Trunow's mitigation bill here. The beach sampling bill, the House version is on the floor, and the Senate version is at the second committee stop. So again, unless there's some procedural horse trading in messages, then this bill is probably not going to make it, or coin toss, I should say. The DEP bill that has a hodgepodge of things in there, including the Kristen Jacobs Aquatic Preserve and some septic tank things and Florida Flood Hub. It has passed the House and is on second reading with the Senate, which means on the Senate floor. The ratification bill is through the Senate and is still on the House floor. There's been no activity at all on this week. It wasn't taken up on the House floor. Obviously, it hasn't moved. But interestingly, all of the environmental bills, none of them moved this week. So I think it's just likely they were focused on budget entirely this week and did not, move any environmental bills. The environmental funding bill is through the Senate and is on the House floor. Buchanan is the House companion, 1417. Water resources. This is the water well contractor license bill. It's through the Senate and is on the House floor. And then here's the House ratification bill, House environmental management bill, and then now we're starting to get to the place where bills are starting to look dead. So this is the comprehensive waste recycling bill, has passed the House and is stuck on the second committee in the Senate. So like the other two bills I referenced that are in this position, because they made it through their first committee, they can technically be introduced. In this case, the House version could get introduced, that, the Senate bill could be laid on the table, the House version could be picked up in the Senate, and it could be passed on the Senate floor, but it would take a procedural move. And to me, it seems like, and I don't know, I'm just speculating, these bills that have made it in one house and have not made it in the other, it's just going to be a question of whether it's kind of worth a chit. And so they may do a little bit of horse trading. There's a lot of horse trading that goes on during budget negotiations, and these bills that have been a priority enough in one chamber to get all the way through, including the floor vote, but have been stuck in committee in the other chamber. It's just because it's not a priority of leadership. So those priorities get traded just like budget items. Below this bill, so 1692 on down, I'm calling all of these dead. Could something be brought back to life if it really meant something to a Senate president or a House speaker? Yes, potentially, particularly if they've made it through at least one committee. But in all likelihood, I think all of these bills down here are dead. Some of them are dead. They haven't made it through their first committee in one chamber or the other. But I don't think it's worth spending time down here. One thing I will mention, since this first bill that I'm calling dead is Broder's PFAS issue. I won't call it the PFAS bill. That's really something that we're looking at out to next year for. But this did not make it. But Broder didn't make it in the House. But Broder apparently, wanted something. He's got a burr under his saddle. There's an issue in his district. So this issue actually got popped up as an appropriation issue. So there's a little bit of money to do whatever this bill was intended to do, and that's kind of another way to do limited, 1 year type of stuff. So there's a Seminole County issue with a industrial discharger that's upsetting some POTW in Seminole County is the word that I've heard about this, and now there's some money to fix that. All right, 8 minutes in, I've gone through all the bills. Who has questions? Okay. You want to talk gossip on 404? Or what,
yes,
what does everybody else want to talk about?
Gossip on 404 would be great, Jeff.
All right, I'll pause. I see a hand up. Gary, what do you have?
Well, I was going to say that on my Representative Mooney's mangrove bill, as far as he's not exactly smart, and he is obviously not aggressive. But if that bill dies, I think it would be great for all of us, because we've had a mangrove act for almost 3 decades now, yep. And it really is not something that needs to be stirred up.
I agree. Yeah, I haven't run into many people that really had their heart set on getting this thing through, and this doesn't affect the current Mangrove Trimming and Preservation Act. This creates rule authority to do mangrove replanting and restoration rules. And again, correct. I don't know what problem is being solved or perceived to be out there that needs to be solved by this.
You're correct.
Any
Back
more
on
questions on
that's the real hot button.
Yeah. So as you know, or probably all of you know, the states did file a petition for a stay and a limited stay earlier this week. The limited stay is to address the judge's suggested kind of path, like an assumption program that would, or 4.4 program that would be limited to activities that don't have an effect on endangered species. Since the judge suggested it as a possible solution, the state went ahead and said, okay, yes, we'll take that if you'll grant it. But the state also requested filed a petition. In the same petition, also requested a stay of the entire order and listed reasons for that. So the judge, well, let me pause there. The Department of Justice, who's representing the EPA in the case, they actually filed a motion, not a motion. They filed, I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. They filed a piece of paper that I don't remember what it's called, that said to the judge that said, we disagree with your legal analysis. We don't think a partial stay, we don't think a limited authority program is legal under the Clean Water Act, and they gave the reasons. And the main reason is there's a limitation on partial assumption or partial delegation in the Clean Water Act. So the DOJ position is, and so this is the EPA position, the federal position in the lawsuit is that the state can't operate a program in parallel and next door to the Corps in the same territory where one agency is reviewing stuff with species on it and the other agency is reviewing stuff with no species on it. They said that's a partial delegation. That's not lawful. So since DOJ and EPA, the federal position is there's no stay opportunity. The feds have essentially abandoned the state. So the state was an intervener in a case brought by environmental petitioners against the federal government. DEP intervened and has a right to intervene because it's their program. So they're in there as an intervener. Well, the federal defendant essentially said, we're done. We're they didn't say we're accepting your decision, but they didn't file any amendment to it or any requests against it. Now there's still some possibility, and there's actually a footnote in the DOJ document that says the Solicitor General has not ruled out, our, a possibility of appeal. So it's not ruled out, but it hasn't been filed. Let me stop and analyze that for y'all, and then I'll talk about what's coming. So what that means is for the judge is he's going to take his sweet time. This is my personal legal, non-legal legal opinion on DEP's filing. He's going to probably look at it pretty cynically, given that the federal position is it's not even lawful. And then he's also going to give it, and the petitioners, they have their time to file a response to DEP's filing. So all of that is going to take some time. Right now, time is probably the biggest enemy of the state 404 program, because if the time it takes for the Solicitor General to come up with an appeal, the time it takes for that won't happen until the judge rules on these kind of limited motions, both the motion by the state, the response by the petitioners. He's going to take time to deal with all of that. And then there'll be the appeal, the time for appeals, then there'll be responses to appeals. The point of saying all of that is the judge does not appear to be, to believe that there's any real crisis here, and seems like he's going to take a long time, which would be the death of the program. Even if we win on technical or legal merits, 6 months from now, we get a reversal. Nobody who is in that group of 1,000 waiting on DEP to act on their 404 application, nobody's going to be content. Well, I shouldn't say that. The vast majority of those 1,000+ applicants are more likely than not going to want to move their application over to an agency that can process it, because DEP cannot. So if the judge takes 6 months, it probably kills the program just by attrition. But with the Corps, well, let me park the Corps for a second. Legally, let me finish the legal story and I'll take questions, and then we'll talk about the Corps. There are other interveners who are working on filing a petition, looks like on Monday. And the interveners these would be national home builders, industry groups, et cetera. Actually, it's not an intervener. It's an amici brief. And I apologize for saying intervener. That's not right. An intervener is somebody who's actually in the case an amici or amici filing is somebody who's kind of observing it and files on behalf of one of the participants in the case. So there is a big filing that's being worked on Monday. It should be submitted on Monday that basically lays out, look, there's, among these 1,000 applications, you've got, projects that are, hospitals or transportation projects or environmental restoration projects, maybe even projects that have federal funding attached to them. And for all of these reasons, or for the reasons that there are all these projects, and this is incredibly disruptive, you judge should grant the stay of your decision, so you're not, you can be upset with the EPA for making the decision, but that's no reason to take it out on all these 1,000 applicants. So that's basically the gist of the filing. Who knows whether the judge will be compelled to hear all of that, kind of the hand wringing, and will reverse himself and stay. Like, he could act on DEP's petition and say, okay, I'll grant the stay. I'm convinced. The folks that I know that are working on that Amici filing, they know it's a Hail Mary, and nobody's really betting on this judge to reverse and hand it back to the state, while to give the state time and EPA time to quote fix something. Any questions on that, or you want me to keep going and tell the core story, and then I'll stop?
Do the show.
Okay. So I've talked to Sean Zenser, head of regulatory at the Corps, a couple of times this week. He has assured me that the Corps is committed to and is willing to and has already surged resources and is knows this is going to be disruptive and wants to do everything they can to minimize the disruption. And we've got this. That's kind of his mindset. So you have probably seen the Corps website was updated. I can put some stuff on the screen. The Corps website was updated either late Wednesday night or Thursday morning. Oops, I switched. Didn't mean that. So they got this little blurb at the top. This made it official. The Corps was quietly receiving 404 applications in state assumed waters since Monday. But this made it official. Basically, this statement here: the Corps is currently the only entity in Florida with the authority to issue permits. That's true. So the Corps also said either the district court or an appellate court may issue a full or partial stay at some point. That's true. But the likelihood of this, according to the federal government, so this is according to DOJ, and what the Corps is hearing from DOJ, is this is almost this likelihood is slim. If this were imminent, the Corps may have waited longer, is my point. So in the interim, and frankly, I'm glad that they've done this, because the fact that there's only one agency, leaves a lot of people with no option if they didn't do this. But they are indeed receiving applications. And then this last sentence is just a placeholder. Their lawyer probably made him say, there is some uncertainty because of the litigation. Now, I don't think, I really am getting on the skinny part of the limb, with my my legal analysis here, my unlawful legal analysis is, if the Corps issues a 404 permit and the judge this decision later gets reversed and the state gets the program back, I don't see the state invalidating a Corps issued permit. So I don't think there's any real risk of anything happening other than you're 6 months into a 404 permit processed by the Corps, the judge's decision gets reversed, and the Corps flips it back to the state. That would be that's the real, I guess, the risk. But I think it's pretty slim.
Hey, Jeff, this is Gary Holwalt.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm hearing is if we are one of the 1,000 that are in process now, we should just go ahead and file for it with the Corps.
Yes, sir.
What was the project that started all this? Do you know? Wasn't there one
No,
or two down in Panther country?
those were thrown on as examples, as kind of illustrative cases. The Southwest Conservancy was really upset about a couple of projects down in Collier and Lee counties. I think maybe just Collier, but anyway, down in Southwest Florida, that are in panther habitat, and just FYI, the one of those projects was about to be issued, and I think that was alarmed the judge and caused him to act on this timeline, and caused him to do do what he did. But interestingly, this is the anecdote that I think is just just makes me shake my head. Because it was about to be issued, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the EPA process, their review process had completed, and neither the service nor EPA had any objections to the permit. So it met all of the criteria, met all the panther mitigation, met all of the, reasonable reduction, all of that stuff that's required under ESA, reasonable and prudent measures, stuff had all been done to the satisfaction of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and EPA under the state program. And the judge said, "Oh, the program's invalid. There's, it's an end run on the ESA." My point in saying all of that is if the Corps were making that decision, those same agencies would be reviewing agencies, and those agencies have already signed off on it. Yeah. So it's not, there's no different agency that didn't get a look at these projects that would now get a look at it with the Corps, other than the Corps. But, any of us that practice in this area know that, the state is more likely to get out in the field and see the thing than the Corps is. The Corps is just shuttling paperwork between the commenting agencies and the applicant. So if the my point is, if the commenting agencies have signed off on it, the Corps would have signed off on it.
Right.
And this whole thing is a nothing burger. But the original sin, as kind of expressed by the petitioners, is the decision to grant it to the state in the first place. And this is hearsay, but what I have heard from DEP is, in private conversations, the environmental groups have essentially admitted they liked having a different agency that they could gum things up with. They liked having two bites of the apple. They didn't want the state having control over the whole thing. That's the original sin.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
Maybe for a subject for a Carl Hyacin novel or something. I mean, it's just cynical, dysfunctional. No environmental advocacy group is really advocating for what they say they're advocating. They're really just fundraising. And anyway, it fuels my cynicism. Now, again, let me. I am not going to cheerlead for the Corps. I've got too much time processing permits with them to ever be a cheerleader for the Corps. But Sean Zenser said he has, I don't know how many $1 million he said. It was not an insignificant amount of money from the division from Atlanta to fund regional surge centers. I'm not reading from my notes. Other offices with excess staff resources, excess 404 staff resources. And he specifically mentioned Albuquerque, New Mexico. Apparently they're all just sitting in the office waiting on a 404 application, because they're, after Sackett, there's basically no federal waters left.
Yeah. Oh, good. So now we're going to have people in Arizona issuing Florida permits.
Yes. You got it. But hey, listen, I think it actually could be better.
Yeah. Can you explain that to my clients?
They're just as likely to go in the field as a Jacksonville Corps person.
Yeah, that's true.
If they have nothing to do, at least the Jacksonville people may spend their time on the beach or whatever. I don't know what the Albuquerque people are doing, but nobody in the Corps is in the office anymore. We all know that. They're all still virtual. So we're just basically, the Corps is just like I said, just a paperwork shuffling agency. So they're a process, agency. And if you have more people work in the process, maybe it'll be, I don't know. I'm not saying it'd be better than State 4-4. I just mean maybe it'd be better than Jacksonville doing it on their own. Sean will probably be watching that, and if he sees Albuquerque beating his own people on time to process, he may slow them down or shut them off. The other thing I want to mention here, and then again, this is not a Jacksonville initiative. This is a headquarters initiative. But has anybody got any experience with this new RRS thing yet?
I've done a little bit on it, but as you can see, the apply for permit is still under construction.
Well, what Sean told me is this is about to be opened. You see this spring 2024. So I don't know. Again, I'm not going to cheerlead for the Corps, but it might be that this thing, when it gets turned on, will help people at least get visibility, transparency into the processing of your permit. You'll know on whose desk it's sitting or with what agency, we're waiting on comments, etc. So this is apparently, Sean made a point of mentioning this. This is about to launch, and that will help as well. That was my only point of bringing that up. And again, this is not a Corps Jacksonville initiative. This is a Corps regulatory, nationwide program. So being able to see your project being processed in Albuquerque or Sacramento or Biloxi or whatever it's being processed, you'll be able to see it in the system once the system goes live. Yeah, go ahead.
Gary Ward. Obviously, on the 15th of February, when the 64 pages came out from the federal judge, I quickly read it and obviously sent, Del Charco and Higgins and you and a couple others that have been involved in 404 for now effectively a quarter of a century. I think Rick Cantrell back at DER was involved, and here we go saying, "Oh, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater." Your comment in recent times is one word: dead. Yep. And I truly question why FES spent a quarter of a century looking to facilitate this. Now, when I read the judge's decision, and I've been personal friends with judges Charlie Fulton back in 71 in Palm Beach County, and Harry Johnston's son-in-law. All these guys have produced what I call competent decisions. And when I read it, I said immediately, there's only one quick solution, which is go to Congress and change the law in 2 or 3 sections. And if you take a look, last year, the crazy Port of Palm Beach district let a tenant go to Congress and stick in WARDA the deauthorization of probably 20% of.
Here, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to go back to Schoolhouse Rock days. If Congress changes the Clean Water Act, that will not change the fact that the judge has struck down EPA's assumption decision. Unless Congress is willing to directly delegate 404 to the states congressionally, then it would still have to go back to EPA with whatever tweaks Congress makes, if it makes a tweak to the Endangered Species Act to address this issue with the judge, and give Section 7, incidental take authority to states delegated under 404 under the Clean Water Act. If those things are made, it still doesn't change the fact that Florida has lost its program. So Florida would have to reapply. EPA would have to react to that application under Congress's revised Clean Water Act. So there's nothing quick about that, Gary. It could it be done? Maybe under this Congress. I think the chances are slim to none. Under this EPA, even if Congress acts, that's slim to none. And the math of a 1% times a 1% is a 0.01%. So I think it's just there's no time and there's no chance of that happening.
Well, we've taken a quarter of a century for something to get done.
Yeah, it's taken a long time.
And what I'm saying is, if this is a good process, then the only quick solution is to go get the law changed, the acts changed, and it's more than one, as you just said.
Yeah.
It's so somewhere along the line. I mean, I do find that Congress money talks up there, and all of a sudden, if this is a good program, and for some reason FES for a quarter of a century till the last couple of years has been putting their oar in the water as soon as something comes out.
So it's disappointing. This judge is not. This judge is an activist. He was sympathetic.
So was Charlie Fulton. So was Harry Johnston's son-in-law, or is.
Well, maybe we needed to send you. We needed to send you to D.C. to have some Coors Lights with this judge before he made his decision.
Well, that true enough is, knowing judges is sometimes part of the old axiom. Anybody else? Yep, we're quiet.
We're quiet. I mean, there are not many more options other than secession.
And when you live in Key West, it comes up almost every week.
I thought that would appeal to you, Gary. Maybe convince the Conch Republic people to launch an attack on Tallahassee and declare our independence. Raise the Conch flag. I'm just kidding, of course. You stopped recording, right, Laura?
No.
Trim that last piece out. That was pure entertainment.
Nope. Truth.
All right. Unless there's something else for the good of the order, I will wish everybody a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the insight.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
sir. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Jeff.